So, I mean, I've talked about the GameCube a lot in the past. I've done many videos on my GameCube collection. Just another look at it there. I mean, I have over 100 GameCube games, and I show no signs of stopping. I picked up these today. I buy on eBay all the time. I buy rare games. I buy common games. I one day hope to have every GameCube game there is. Kind of a tall order, but hey, you never know. So that was my look at the Nintendo GameCube. Kind of short, I know, but there's really not much to say about it. It's an absolutely classic console, or at least it will be considered a classic console one day. There have been some absolutely amazing games, like just looking down, you got Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2, Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Baten Kaitos and Baten Kaitos Origins, Pikmin and Pikmin 2, absolutely amazing games. There was the Mega Man Battle Network Transmission. There was Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. There's just so many games for it. The whole Resident Evil series. You can get Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1, a remake of it, Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica X, all on the GameCube. I mean, if you want 5, you gotta, get an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, but there you have it. Speaking of which, I'm going to be doing a video kind of talking about that in a little while. But yeah, there's just so many games for it. I think that the GameCube, in a lot of ways, it brought back a lot of series that hadn't been on the Nintendo 64, like Metroid. There was no Metroid in the N64, and we got 2 Metroid games on the GameCube. There was no Fire Emblem on the N64, and we got a Fire Emblem game on GameCube. Not only that, but it actually came out here in America, and it's damn good. Mega Man, there was like only one Mega Man game for the N64, and it was like a port of a PlayStation game. But we got, Mega Man Collection, Mega Man X Collection, Mega Man X Command Mission, we got Transmission, and I mean, there was just, so many great series. I mean, Resident Evil, Sonic, Mario, Zelda. I mean, we had lots of Zelda games. I mean, there was Zelda Four Swords Adventure, there was Zelda Wind Waker, there was Zelda Twilight Princess, there was the Collector's Disc, which had Zelda 1, 2, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, and there was the Ocarina of Time with Master Quest Disc. I have all those. I mean, just looking at these, there's just so many different things. I mean, Star Wars Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron, that was the first GameCube game I ever got, was Star Wars Rogue Leader. I mean, like I said, just an amazing console. And I was always surprised that it wasn't as successful as the Nintendo 64, because it addressed a lot of the issues that many people had with the Nintendo 64. A lot of people pointed out that the Nintendo 64, although the graphics were wonderful for the time, it had low memory in terms of textures, which made the textures very blurry. The GameCube, by comparison, was pretty high res compared to that, had great textures. They didn't like the cartridge media. They thought that, that's a thing of the past. It's time to move on past cartridge media. Nintendo optical discs, they're like DVDs, only smaller. The one thing that the GameCube didn't do is it didn't play DVDs because of that. Even though Xbox plays DVDs and PlayStation 2 plays DVDs, Nintendo, they've always said, we're a video game company. We don't need to be multimedia. Multimedia has hurt other systems in the past, such as the 3DO and the CDI and such. And right now, look at the PlayStation 3 being this super expensive thing. And I will be talking about that in the next video. That's marketed a lot as a Blu-ray player. So, the GameCube in a lot of ways was kind of underrated. It didn't do as well as the N64, and I really never understood why. Now the Wii is doing great, and GameCube games fly off the shelves because, hey, they're cheap and they play on the Wii. So for a lot of people, families who they want lots and lots of games to play on their Wii, but they don't necessarily want to spend $40 to $50 to $60, they can get a bunch of cheap GameCube games and plug the GameCube controllers in and the GameCube memory cards in and enjoy that. And, there you have it, really cheap games. There was a version of the GameCube that did play DVDs. I talked about this on the blog. It was called the Q. It was made by Panasonic. It only came out in Japan. It had a really snazzy design, kind of looked like a printer fucked a stereo. It had a nice chrome front, and it's a snazzy collector's item. But it wasn't really popular in Japan because people realized they can get a GameCube and a DVD player and still have money left over, as opposed to buying the Panasonic Q. But really, that's all I have to say about the GameCube. It had a pretty good run. It was up against PlayStation 2 and Xbox. It pretty much, it did better than the Xbox. It didn't really do better than, in the long term, it did better than the Xbox. It got outsold a lot, but the Xbox went out before the GameCube went out. PlayStation 2, though, I mean, it just couldn't stand up to that. But hey, look, Nintendo's out in front again. That's great, for us who grew up on Nintendo. Yeah. So I just really wanted to talk about the GameCube. And like I said, it was a huge system for me. I love the games for it. I love the system. I think, some of the games that came out for it, like Pikmin, it's one of the weirdest concepts ever. Another thing I talked about on the blog recently, but it's also like one of the best games I've ever played. And Pikmin 2 is even better, and I can't wait for 3 to come out. And I would love there to be like a Pikmin game on like the DS. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks, and I'll talk about the Game Boy Advance. See you then.